Brothers and sisters, so it is now Friday morning. The Thursday night football game has already happened, and if you're watching this video, you probably noticed that my preview video for the Thursday night game did not make it up. That is because I accidentally deleted the footage that I had shot for the Thursday night preview off of my camera, and I was unable to re-record it. So that video did not get up, but I thought in lieu of that, I would react and kind of give a bit of a post-game reaction to the game. I had originally picked the Packers to win, so that drops me now to 0-4 on my Thursday night football predictions. But I did say in that preview that, the Eagles would be a quartered animal and they would be playing hard, trying to save their season to avoid going 1-3, and apparently I greatly underestimated that because the Eagles did absolutely everything they had to do to win this game, and they played like it was a must-win game. It was a really good game played by the Eagles to do what they needed to do and win that game. The Packers, though, some concerning signs in this game. This was a game that I thought they really should have won, and they had every opportunity to. They got off to an early lead. For the Packers, some very concerning signs. The defense did not play nearly as well in this game as they had been the previous 3 weeks of the season. They were getting gashed all night long by Jordan Howard and the Eagles' run game. And when they needed timely stops, they just couldn't get them. The Packers scored a touchdown to go into the half only down 1, and they were getting the ball back in the second half. And the Packers, they go 3 and out, and the defense unable to get a stop. They allow Philly to march down the field and score a touchdown to make it an 8-point game once again. Well, actually, it wasn't an 8-point game because for whatever reason, Doug Peterson decided to go for 2 instead of take the extra point and make it an 8-point game, and he was unsuccessful on the 2-point conversion, so that only made it a 7-point game. That was a bit puzzling to me. I would have taken the extra point and made it an 8-point game and make the Packers have to go for 2 at the end to tie it. But then after that, Aaron Rodgers drives the Packers down the field and tie the game. The very next drive, the defense allows Philadelphia to march down the field and score another touchdown, which would turn out to be the game-winning touchdown. It was not a good game for the Packers defensively, and the play calling down the stretch by Matt LaFleur and the Packers coaching staff was absolutely inexplicable to me. They're down a touchdown, they have the ball first and goal at the 1-yard line, and they pass the ball 4 times, neither of them, and complete none of them, and they turn the ball over on downs at the 1-yard line. I mean, I know Aaron Jones hadn't been having a very good game up to that point, and Jamal Williams left the game early in the first quarter on a stretcher. Prayers to him. Hopefully he's okay. But Aaron Jones hadn't been playing well up to that point. But do you really not trust him to get 1 yard in 4 attempts? Really? What are you doing? So they screwed that up, but the defense is able to make a stop at that point, and they do get the ball back. And then they have the ball once again. It's second and goal, I believe, at the 2-yard line, and they throw a slant play to Valdez-Scantling, and it gets deflected and intercepted by the Eagles, and that ended up being the game. That was the last drive of the game. There was like 20 seconds to go at that point, and the Eagles held on to win 34-27. It was a hell of a game. It was by far the most entertaining Thursday night game that I've seen yet this season. Honestly, even the best primetime game they've showed this season, bar none. Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, this was by far the best primetime game. It was a very entertaining game. Matt LaFleur is going to have to answer for that unbelievable play calling at the 1-yard line with first and goal. The defense is going to have some question marks going into next week because I feel like they kind of came back down to earth a little bit, and I do think I'm not ready to jump ship on this Green Bay defensive unit just yet. They were playing an Eagles offense who just got Alshon Jeffrey back, And Green Bay's running defense hasn't necessarily been that great through this 3-0 start they've been on. Nevertheless, though, this was a pretty big come-down game for that defensive unit, and they're going to be looking to bounce back next week, and we'll see if they can do it. But for the Eagles, huge win, season-saving win. They're now 2-2 with a chance still to chase down the Cowboys, who are now leading that division, and are playing a Saints team who could beat them. So you never know. By the end of Sunday's games this week, the Eagles could only find themselves one game back of the Cowboys. So we'll see what happens. But a huge win for the Eagles and a disappointing loss for the Packers. Let me know what you guys thought about the Thursday night game down in the comments. And without any further ado, let's get into the Sunday games.
Hello brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the channel. We got another full slate of Sunday football games to get through, but we have one game less this week because we have two teams who are on the bye here in week 4, and that is the New Jersey Jets, who in all honesty should probably just stay on the bye for like the rest of the season. And you got the San Francisco 49ers, who are off to a 3-0 start and are in many ways being compared to the Bills. And some people think they're better than the Bills, which is factually incorrect, and I will not hear any arguments to the contrary. But that being said, those are the buys for this week, and we have a bunch of games to get through, so we're just going to dive right in, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. Congratulations, Lions. You got a good win against Philadelphia last week, and your prize is you get to play the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is just a walking cheat code at this point. I mean, the dude just throws the ball wherever, and someone is there to catch it. Like, what the heck? He absolutely carved up the Ravens defense, who I'm starting to think may not be as strong and mighty as I originally thought at the beginning of the season. But nevertheless, I don't see anything that the Lions have done this season that should scare the Chiefs. And that's not to shortchange the Lions. They got a good win last week, and they are technically undefeated. I mean, hell, they could be 3-0 right now if they could just close a game out against the Cardinals. But you're facing the best offense in the league, and I mean, that's a tall order for any team, and there would be no shame in losing this game. So I'm not trying to show any disrespect here by picking the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs win this game. But if the Lions manage to keep this game close, which I think they could, then I will officially start to keep an eye on them as a potential playoff team. Next up, we have the Titans versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Tennessee Titans looking to bounce back this week after a horrendous Thursday night football performance against the Jaguars, whereas the Falcons are coming off a loss where they got absolutely blindsided by a Colts team who completely brought the heat in their home opener and playing with a tremendous chip on their shoulder. Both teams are entering desperation mode as they sit 1-2 and are in danger once again of letting their season get away from them. One thing that would concern me if I'm the Titans is just how easily Gardner Minshew was able to move the ball down the field against your defense. That, I don't care how good Minshew is, that shouldn't happen. And you better not let that happen again against an Atlanta team who has a Julio Jones, Matt Ryan at quarterback, and Calvin Ridley. But defense is also a concern for the Falcons, as Jacoby Brissett just went off in that game against the Falcons and pretty much did whatever the hell he wanted against the Falcons defense. And now they're going to be without their starting safety, Keanu Neal, for the entire season. So that's a pretty heavy blow for this team. But at the same time, the Titans have failed to get anything going offensively in the last 2 weeks. And last week, they ran into a Jacksonville defense that came into that game struggling a lot. And they got absolutely crushed by them. This is a toss-up for me. I want to say the Falcons can win this game because I think they have more talent on offense. But I also don't believe the Titans are as bad as they played on Thursday. I also don't think they're as good as they played in week 1 against the Browns, but there never seems to be a middle ground with this team. They're either really good or they're really bad, and it's a coin flip as to which one you're going to get week to week. So I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with the consistency. I'm going to go with what I know, and that is the Falcons, and I think they're going to win this game, but you could just as easily have the Titans randomly decide to play well again this week, in which case I think the Titans could easily win this game. So you never know. You just never know. Up next, we have two off-season narratives colliding as the Raiders head into Indianapolis to take on the Colts. The Colts obviously still trying to prove that they can hang in the absence of Andrew Luck, and they proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt with the breakout game that Jacoby Brissett had against the Falcons. Over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Come on, have a day. Meanwhile, the Raiders seem to have shaken off all the Antonio Brown narrative and have gone back to being exactly what we expected them to be, which is terrible. And Jacoby Brissett, it can't be understated, he's having a fantastic start to the season. I mean, the guy has played really well, and I think has far surpassed anyone's expectations after the retirement of Andrew Luck. They also have a much more formidable passing attack than the Raiders do with T.Y. Hilton and Eric Ebron. The only thing I'm not necessarily sold on with this team is their defense, who have not looked impressive in the first 3 games and have been a downright liability at times. And now they're going to be missing Malik Hooker for the next 4 to 8 weeks, it looks like, which is a pretty big blow to an already struggling defense. But again, I don't really see what the Raiders have on offense other than Josh Jacobs, with which they'll be able to exploit the potential weaknesses that the Colts have on defense. So I think the Colts will continue to ride the momentum and go 3-1 over the Raiders, who are continuing to disappoint after what looked to be a pretty promising start to their season. And that brings us to the game of the week for me, and that is the New England Patriots heading to New Era Field in Orchard Park to take on the Buffalo Bills. I am sick and tired of hearing how great this Patriots defense is. What, am I supposed to be impressed that you held a third-string quarterback to no points? Or shut out a Dolphins team who is actively trying to lose football games? I mean, I'm not trying to smack talk the Patriots here. I'm really not. But can we just pump the brakes on the talk of this being the best defense in the history of the league until they've actually had to play a real NFL offense? I'm not even saying necessarily that the Bills are one of the best offenses in the league or that they'll even present a challenge to the New England defense, but I mean, come on. That being said, though, if we go into some numbers here, I think you'll find that this is not going to be that lopsided of a matchup. The Patriots are ranked 5th in the league in total offense, going up against a Bills defense who are also ranked 5th. The Bills in total offense, surprisingly in the top 10, they rank 8th in the league in total offense, and obviously New England's defense is the top-ranked defense in the league. But the key for Buffalo on offense, I feel like, is going to be Devin Singletary. He missed the Bengals game with a hamstring injury, and he did not practice today as of recording this on Wednesday. Does he play this week against the Patriots? If he does, then he adds a whole other dimension to this offense and this running attack that New England has to game plan for. But you look at the other weapons that Buffalo has. John Brown, who's always a threat to take the top off of defenses. Cole Beasley, a dangerous slot receiver. Zay Jones, who is turning into a pretty effective situational player. Dawson Knox, coming off a game in which he single-handedly crushed the hopes and dreams of 2 Bengals defenders in one play. Fort Knox, the Juggernauts. You just got Knoxed the F out. And I absolutely love what Frank Gore has brought to this team in 3 weeks. I think he's been great for this offense. So this offense has no shortage of weapons, and that's not even talking about the big playability of Josh Allen. The Patriots defense will have their hands full with this Bills offense, I feel like. And that's not even talking about a Bills defense who will by far be the most challenging defense that the Patriots have had to play this season. Tom Brady will score points, but if you're Buffalo, all you're looking to do is limit the damage. So far, Buffalo has done a good job shutting down their opponent's top playmakers. John Ross came in for Cincinnati last week, leading the league in receiving, and he was an absolute non-factor in this game. He only caught for 22 yards in that game. So Buffalo has shown that they can take away a team's top playmaker in a game. And they're going to need to do that here because there's no shortage of playmakers on this New England offense. Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, who may not be 100%, but it is looking right now that he is going to play. And Philip Dorsett is having a renaissance season for the Patriots. And of course, they have that dangerous ground game with White and Sony Michel. I think the Bills' defense will be able to control those guys on the run because Buffalo's actually been pretty good against the run so far this season, minus one drive against the Giants. But it's Tom Brady and that passing attack that I'm most concerned about. There is a case you can make for the Bills to win this game, but it will involve Buffalo doing absolutely everything right on both sides of the ball and a lot of things breaking our way in this game. It's definitely not going to be easy, but I will remain steadfast, and I am going to pick against all logic and reason that the Bills are going to find a way to win this game and beat the Pats and go 4-0. Let's go, Buffalo! Next, we are heading to MetLife Stadium once again for an NFC East showdown between the bottom two teams of that division, and that is the Washington Redskins versus the New Jersey Giants. First of all, I would like to formally apologize to all Giants fans for every joke, every negative thing I've ever said about the Daniel Jones pick. There were a lot of people in this league, myself included, who absolutely dragged the Giants organization and their GM through the mud after he made that pick. And in his first start as an NFL quarterback, what does Daniel Jones do? He throws for over 300 yards passing, throws 3 touchdowns, runs for 2 more, and wins the game in Tampa Bay on the last drive and leads them on a game-winning drive to get their first win of the season. I mean, come on, how do you not love that? Giants fan or not, you gotta admit, that was something special. And now you got the Washington Redskins coming into your hometown, coming off a game where they got absolutely mauled by the Bears. Case Keenum had 3 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles. That was a game to forget for him. And you gotta love how this is shaping up for the Giants. The only knocks on this Giants team, though, is the defense is still as bad as it was when Eli was playing. And as long as they continue to play this way, I'm never gonna really give the Giants a chance to make any noise in this season. And of course, you have the elephant in the room, which is that Saquon Barkley is gonna be missing a pretty good chunk of time this season with a high ankle sprain. I don't think the absence of Barkley hurts him that much in this game, though, as Washington's secondary has been getting burned all season, and I think Jones, if he plays the way he did in Tampa, will be able to move the ball pretty effectively without their top running back. And that's taking into account, too, that they have Sterling Shepard back from concussion protocol. Evan Ingram has been fantastic, and this kid named Slayton, who I didn't even know who he was, I guess he's a rookie, he had a really good game last week, too, so if he continues to play that way, there's a lot of other playmakers that Daniel Jones can lean on this Giants offense. And I just love the way that this offensive unit rallied around their new quarterback and found a way to get a win for him. The Giants, for the first time in a while, are coming into this game with some hope, and they're coming in with momentum, whereas the Redskins are just a team who are dead in the water now. I'm going to the Giants to win this one. Next up, we have the Browns versus the Ravens. It isn't getting any easier for Baker Mayfield's hype train as they have to go into Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson, and a Ravens team who will likely have a chip on their shoulder after being bested last week by the Chiefs. Big issues are starting to show for Cleveland, not just on the field, but also the coaching. Freddie Kitchens absolutely cocked up that final drive against the Rams. A draw play on 4th and 9. I mean, what the hell are you doing, man? Baker Mayfield has looked absolutely rattled behind that garbage O-line. If there is a bright side that I could take from that game against the Rams, it's that the defense played pretty well. But they're taking a major step up this week against one of the best offenses in the league. Not to just gloss over Baltimore, though, because that defense got carved up against Kansas City. And I'm actually starting to get worried about that defensive unit. I mean, I know it's the Chiefs, and I know it's Patrick Mahomes, but you had wide receivers running down the field completely uncovered. I don't care how good your opponent is. That cannot happen. Still, though, there isn't much of a case I can make for the Browns to win this game. I think the Ravens win pretty easily. Next up, we have the Cam Newton-less Carolina Panthers heading to the Lone Star State to take on the Houston Texans. Houston's on a nice little run with back-to-back wins against the Jags and the Chargers. The offensive line is getting a little better. They've been able to decrease the amount of quarterback hits and sacks game to game, which is a good sign. It looks like Laramie Tunsil and the rest of that line is starting to coalesce, and if they keep improving that way, then I think that's the last puzzle piece this team needs to finally win a gosh darn playoff game. But wait a minute. Who's this bad man named Kyle Allen? 4 touchdown passes? Are you kidding me? Is there a QB controversy going on in Carolina? I don't know. I honestly don't think so. I think those 4 touchdown passes are a bit misleading. He only threw for 261 yards, and I think the Texans are a more talented team than the Cardinals, especially on defense. I think Kyle Allen comes back down to earth a little bit in this game, and I think the Texans are going to win. Next up, we have the Chargers hopping into the Miami Fish Tank to take on the Dolphins. Bad news is, Chargers, you've dropped 2 games in a row and are now 1-2, but the good news is you're playing the Dolphins. There's a bright spot for the Dolphins in last week's game. It's that you did manage to go into halftime only down by 4. The game vaguely resembled an athletic contest, but you're not going to win this game. You're not going to win any games. I mean, does anybody think they're? I mean, who are you kidding? Does anybody think they're going to be competitive at all in this season? Who are you fooling? Just take your number 1 pick and please get Josh Rosen onto a real team. I'm begging you. That brings us to the Rams hosting the Buccaneers. Buccaneers had to win that game last week against the Chargers. That was a winnable game against a rookie quarterback, and you had a chance to get in the divisional race as the front runner in that division was without their starting quarterback for 6 weeks, and you miss a 34-yard kick to win the game? What are you doing? Now your schedule gets a lot more difficult, which includes a game against the aforementioned Saints, who are coming off a very strong-looking performance against the Seahawks in the absence of Drew Brees. And you're in a position now where you have to get a win against the Rams and hope the Saints lose their game to even have a prayer for the rest of the season. Could you have screwed this up any more thoroughly than you already have? The Rams are coming in with some momentum. They didn't look great on offense against Cleveland, but they still did enough to win the game. That Rams defense and their pass rush still look pretty formidable. I will say I do like the Buccaneers pass rush, and Mike Evans is having a tremendous start to the season, but I don't like how the Bucs match up against this Rams team. I think the Rams win. It's pretty hard to make a case for the Buccaneers in this game. You had your chance at relevance last week and you blew it, so this is what you get, and frankly, this is what you deserve, Bucs. Next up is the divisional clash between the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. Both of these teams let me down a bit last week. I picked them both to win. I thought the Seahawks would take advantage of a Saints team who were without their starting quarterback, and I went out on a limb for the Cardinals to get their first win of the season against a struggling Panthers team who are also going to be without their starting quarterback, only to get run over by a truck named Kyle Allen. Now, I'm not that salty at the Cardinals as I was last week against the Bengals, mainly because the Cardinals actually put up a fight in that game, and my expectations for the Cardinals aren't really that high. But I still believe that this Cardinals team can get better, and as the season goes on, I think there'll be a tough draw for some of these playoff hopeful teams. That being said, though, that Panthers game had to be a game where you showed me something and you didn't get it done, and now you have a pissed off Seattle team coming into town, coming off an embarrassing defeat to the Saints. Now, I am officially concerned about this Seahawks defense, by the way. Can't really blame them when the Saints scored a special teams and a defensive touchdown, but Alvin Kamara ran all over them, 69 rushing yards and a touchdown, 92 receiving yards. He was the Saints' leading receiver in that game. Not a great sign at this point of the season for the Seahawks. And the Cardinals do have what I believe is an underrated passing attack, despite a rough game last week for Kyler Murray, throwing 2 interceptions and failing to break 200 yards. But I still like what they have, though, with Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk and David Johnson having a solid start to the season. This team still has a lot of holes on its roster, but I think there's a foundation to build upon here if they will just be patient with Kyler Murray as he develops and improves, and give this coach a little more than 1 year to develop his team. And for the love of God, get this man an offensive line. But I think the Seahawks win this game. They have a better defense and a better passing attack and a more battle-tested quarterback. I think they bounce back in this game and get the win. Next up, we have the Vikings heading to Chicago to take on the Bears. Both teams are 2-1. Both teams defeated their Week 3 opponents pretty soundly. The Vikings pillaged the black hole in Oakland and came out with a W, whereas the Bears absolutely mauled the Redskins. Mitch Trubisky should have a week of relief from all of the criticism he's been receiving from the start of the season, going 25-31 for 231 yards and 3 touchdowns to Taylor Gabriel, who was having a hell of a game until he left with a concussion. Hopefully he's okay, because the Bears will need all hands on deck to beat a Vikings defense that is absolutely loaded for bear and attacking quarterbacks with extreme prejudice. Get it? Loaded for bear. Anyway, Trubisky is going to have to start stacking up games like he played in Washington, but he's going to have his work cut out for him against Minnesota. I see this being a really low-scoring game, as the Bears' defense is also every bit as good as advertised, and Kirk Cousins is still not a quarterback who I trust under pressure, and you know that Khalil Mack in this Bears pass rush is going to be bringing some heat. Dalvin Cook, though, continuing the tear that he's been on last week against the Raiders, and Chicago's defense is going to have their hands full trying to contain him. This is a tough one to call. It's really a battle of the defenses. I could see this being a very low-scoring defensive game. It comes down to who I trust more. Do I trust the Khalil Mack-led pass rush, or do I trust a really strong team unit in the Vikings? I will take Khalil Mack over anybody, if I'm being honest. I'm going with the Bears in this one, but I'm certainly not counting out the Vikings in this game by any stretch. Next up is the Jaguars taking on the Denver Broncos in Mile High Stadium. The Broncos have not come anywhere close to living up to expectations, with Joe Flacco on this offense being towards the bottom of the league in all categories, and a defense that has very thoroughly failed to live up to expectations. I thought coming into the season that the Broncos would be competitive and their defense would keep them in games, but that has not been the case at all this season. And Joe Flacco's style of play as quarterback has just slowed this Denver offense down to a screeching halt. It has not been fun to watch. This is an ugly, ugly football team right now. And he's got to play a Jacksonville defense who looks like they've gotten their mojo back after sacking Marcus Mariota. I think it was 5 times on Thursday Night Football. And this is a very similar offense to the Titans, so I think that works greatly into Jacksonville's favor. Now, I have to be honest, I wasn't on board the Gardner Minshew train at first, but I liked what I saw out of him on Thursday. He's aggressive, he's not afraid to take shots downfield. He also showed some decent decision-making that you don't really expect from a 6th-round rookie. And I think he rides the hype train another week, and he's going to beat the Broncos. I can't make a case for the Broncos to win any of their games right now playing the way they are. And that brings us to Sunday Night Football, which is a very intriguing matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Drew Brees-less Saints. The Saints showed last week that they can hang without Drew Brees, and when you need to spark an offense that is without your starting quarterback, a good way to do that is spotting him 14 points on defense and special teams. If Teddy Bridgewater can just keep this team at or above 500 until Brees gets back, then I think this team will be just fine. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are coming in 3-0 after a glorified bye week against the Fish Tank. Still not sold on this Saints defense after letting Seattle back into that game late last week. And they have to play a Cowboys offense that is all systems go right now. Kellen Moore has breathed completely new life into this Dallas offense. Dak Prescott continuing to make a strong case for why the Cowboys should pay him all of the money. And Zeke Elliott is continuing to earn his new contract. And Amari Cooper and Randall Cobb have integrated beautifully into this offense. I can't say enough good things about this Dallas offense through 3 games, and I'm not even that big of a Cowboys fan, but I can't deny they've been fun to watch to start this season. And I'm not loving how the Saints defense matches up against this Dallas offense. While the Dallas defense isn't dominating anyone either, they are opportunistic and they make plays when they need to. I think the Saints are really up against it again this week, but I counted them out last week against Seattle, and I paid dearly for that. That being said, I just think Dak Prescott in this passing attack is too good right now, and I think Dallas wins, but it'll be close, and I'm looking forward to watching this game. And finally, we're at the Monday Night Football game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. These games are usually spirited contests between 2 divisional rivals, 2 bitter divisional rivals at that. But usually one or more of these teams are actually good, and that is not the case in this game. That being said, I do think this will be a competitive game, though, given how good the Bengals' passing attack has been, and how shit the Steelers' defense has been. Although they did pick off Jimmy G 3 times last week, I think, and Minkah Fitzpatrick came in and made an immediate impact in that secondary. And this is set up nicely for Mason Rudolph to get his first win. But I don't think the Steelers' O-line against this Bengals pass rush, who I think is one of the more underrated pass rushes in the league, is going to match up well. They gave Josh Allen and the Bills a real hard time last week, especially in the second half. And maybe you coax Mason Rudolph into a mistake or two that may ultimately cost them the game. I don't know about that, but I still haven't forgiven Cincinnati for screwing me over in week 2 and letting me down. So even though I think the Bengals can win this game, I'm picking the Steelers just out of spite for the Cincinnati Bengals. Watch, now they're going to win on Monday night, and I'm going to look like an ass. But those are all of the games going on this Sunday, all the way down to Monday Night Football. Be sure to let me know down in the comments, who do you think is going to win these games? Do you agree with any of my predictions, or do you think I'm a big stupid head who should go jump out a window? Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel, that would all help me a lot, and I'd be tremendously grateful. And as always, have a blessed week, and we will see you in the next video. And as always for this show, I'm gonna be extra loud for Patriots week. Let's